Launching an application on Amazon's Elastic Kubernetes Service, or EKS, well, it can feel super complicated, right? Kind of like you're staring at a blueprint for a rocket ship. But what if I told you it only takes a few key components to actually get to liftoff? In this explainer, we're going to walk through that exact process, step by step. Have you ever looked at Kubernetes and just thought it was some kind of arcane magic? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain. We're going to walk through the exact steps to take your application and get it running live on an EKS cluster. And you'll see, it's a lot more straightforward than you might think. Okay, first things first. Every successful launch has to start with a solid foundation. You got to do your pre-flight checks before you even think about hitting the big red button. So let's talk about what needs to be ready.
So for this explainer, we're starting right from the launchpad. We're going to assume 4 key things are already in place. First up, your app is already packaged up as a container image and it's sitting in a registry. Next, your EKS cluster is already provisioned and running. Third, your command line tool, kubectl, is all set up to talk to that cluster. And finally, you've got the right IAM permissions so the cluster can actually create other things in AWS. With those checks done, we can get to the fun part, the blueprints. Now we get to the real heart of Kubernetes, telling it what we want to run. And we do this with these things called manifest files. Seriously, just think of them as the architectural blueprints for our application. We're going to focus on the 2 most important ones you'll ever need. The first, and honestly the most critical blueprint, is the deployment. This is the master plan. It tells Kubernetes exactly which container image to use, how many identical copies or replicas it should run, and how to roll out new versions without any downtime. You just declare what you want, and Kubernetes makes it happen. And this right here, this is the magic. Inside that deployment blueprint, you see that one line, replicas 3? That tells Kubernetes your entire goal. You're just saying, hey, I want you to always run 3 copies of my app. You don't tell it how to do it, you just declare the end state. And that declarative power is what makes Kubernetes so awesome. If one of those copies fails, a new one just starts up automatically. Okay, so our app's running, but how does anyone actually reach it? That's where our second blueprint comes in, the service. If the deployment is the brain, the service is the application's public address and its front door. It creates one stable network endpoint that sends traffic to our running app, no matter where it is in the cluster. And this is just brilliant. It shows exactly how we open that front door to the world. In the service blueprint, the key line is type, load balancer. When Kubernetes sees this, and because we're on AWS, it automatically goes out and creates an elastic load balancer, gives it a public IP address, and wires everything up so traffic from the internet can find our app. It's just network automation at its absolute best. So let's just lock this in. The deployment, that's the brains. It's all about what to run and how many. The service, that's the front door on the right. It's all about how to actually get to those running pods. To run an app that people can actually use, you're always going to need both. Now, it's worth pointing out that not all services are public. You've got something called a cluster IP service, which is just for internal chatter, like a back-end service talking to a database inside the cluster. But for our web app today, we absolutely need that load balancer type to make it accessible from the outside world. All right, we've designed our blueprints, we've defined our deployment and our service. Now it is time to hand those plans over to the construction crew, which is Kubernetes itself, and watch our application come to life. And how do we do that? Well, with this one powerful command, kubectl apply. We just point it at our blueprint files, first the deployment, then the service. The Kubernetes control plane reads them, understands what we want, and then works tirelessly behind the scenes to make it all a reality. Okay, we ran the commands, we handed off our blueprints. Now it's time for the final inspection. We need to verify that what we asked for is actually what we got. And this is that moment every single developer knows all too well. You hit enter, a bunch of stuff happens behind the scenes, and that big question is just hanging in the air. Did it actually work? Thankfully, Kubernetes makes it super easy to find out. First, you run kubectl get pods. This will show you if your 3 little replicas are up and running. Once they are, you run kubectl get service, and that will spit out the public address of the load balancer that was just created for you. You can literally take that address, paste it into your browser, and see your application live on the internet. So to wrap all of this up, let's just go over a final checklist. These are the core things, the key takeaways you absolutely need to deploy an application on Amazon EKS.
Let's recap the 4 essential things. Number 1, the container image. That's your actual application code. 2, the deployment manifest. That's the master blueprint. 3, the service manifest, your public front door. And finally, those underlying IAM roles we talked about at the start, which give your cluster the permissions it needs to create stuff like a load balancer in your AWS account. And there you have it. From just a container image to a publicly accessible application running on a managed Kubernetes cluster, you've done it, it's deployed. So the only question left is, what comes next? Are you going to focus on scaling your app, setting up some solid monitoring, or maybe diving deep into security? Your cloud-native journey is really just beginning.